Hello and welcome to Hedonic Design. My name is Mubarak Wasim, and in this episode I'm actually going to be starting a new series called Comment Reply, and that's where I take one of the dozens of comments that you guys so selflessly leave on my videos, and I'm going to be actually creating a tutorial specifically around that comment instead of just personally replying to the comment itself, the commenter, because it creates firstly, it gives me a tutorial to do, and secondly, it gives everyone the answer to a question which I'm sure is on a lot of people's minds. So our question today comes from username rawrichnfitforlife, and he says, "Hello, could you help me out? I have CS4, 5 and elements. I want to cut out an image of a photo and layer it over another photo like I would with a pair of scissors." This is a very common application for Photoshop. People always cut out photos to put up on other photos, cut out photos or objects to put in other pictures. And I'm going to show you 4 ways in which that can be done. Well, 3 ways in which that can be done, and then I'm going to go through an example, which is rather like the example that the question is about. But I think that instead of just jumping straight into that, it's important to go through all the other options so you can see just exactly what the thought process is behind this. So I'm going to head over here, and here I have just a plain image. If I hit V, I can move it around, just one plain image, and this image is actually an H and a background layer of green combined together with Control E or Command E on the Mac, which is the default tool, and you can map it to whatever you want. So if I go over here on my tools palette, you can see I've got the Magic Wand tool over here. I can press W, or I can hold down this tool and go to Magic Wand, or I can click here. Sorry, no, I can hold down this tool and go to Magic Wand. And here I have the Magic Wand, and the Magic Wand tool essentially selects one color and helps you to delete that. So for example, I could click here on the green and it would just highlight the green, and then I could press backspace to delete the green. Excuse me. So that's a great tool if you've got a very, very simple cutout. However, there's ways that it can become a bit more complicated. If I draw a line of green onto this H, we have a little bit of a problem, because the Wand tool is now going to select the green as well, and when I delete it, the entire green goes. So if you look up in the top, there's this useful button called contiguous, and when you check contiguous, or you click on this checkbox here, what it does is it remembers the boundaries. So Photoshop will, if I zoom in a tad, Photoshop will zoom up to this black, and it will know there's green here, but because we've checked contiguous, it won't go over the black. So if I click here, again, it just does the black. And of course, if I break this boundary by using the brush tool to just flow over here, then of course, as soon as I use the Magic Wand tool, it will select this. And obviously there's a bit of a barrier here, so it won't select that. There's a couple of different options you can use with the Wand tool. You can change the tolerance. So for example, the tolerance now is 32. The higher the tolerance, the greater range of color it selects. So for example, if I have a light green and a dark green, if I up the tolerance, it will select the entire green. A lower tolerance just selects one color. A tolerance of 1 would just select this one hexadecimal code, 57E9B7, and anything that wasn't 57E9B7 would not be selected. Now, of course, this might be useful if you haven't checked contiguous, because it can select the whole object. But if you have checked contiguous, it won't be very useful unless you have a completely solid background. However, the Wand tool is a bit limited. If I go over here, we can see that the Wand tool isn't that good if I have a gradient background. So again, exactly the same concept, still got the Wand tool selected, however, it'll only select this much. And then I have to select this. Now, obviously that was okay because it's a very simple background that I've created. It's just one gradient. But if you are actually working with a lot of different colors and you have quite a complicated background, which is most likely in a photo, especially if you're taking it behind some grass instead of like a wall, you have a lot of different colors, and you'll never ever just get these 2 colors, so this dark sort of beigey coffee color and this lighter cream almost color. So what you can select in some cases is the quick selection tool. So if I hold my mouse over the wand button and I hold click, I'll come up with two selections. We just use the magic wand, and I'm going to use the quick selection tool. So I go over here and click the quick selection tool. And the quick selection tool is a really good tool. Basically, it works in a mildly similar way to the wand tool. For example, if I just click, it will select that space. It doesn't really, it's not based around color, but it uses color. So basically the selection tool, you click and you hold click and you drag an area you want, and Photoshop smartly selects which colors you want to include. And once you've dragged over the whole shape, it will realize that the black is what you don't want to include. The black is what you want to include in the picture. And again, you've got different options. You've got brush sizes, so I can create a huge brush size, and then it could become a little easier. But again, for photos, which are quite delicate, different colors involved, that's not generally advised. But that's another tool that you can use. And you've got all the general brush options, sorry, not statistics here, that you can use to help you with the quick selection tool. The final tool, and probably the most useful if you're cutting out from a photo, is the pen tool. Now here, sorry if this is a bit psychedelic, but well, not psychedelic as it's monochromatic, but it's a bit confusing. Anyway, you will find that there are some problems with using the wand tool here, because obviously we've got a gradient, and the harshest gradient that you can possibly have, from white to black. And especially because we've got the reverse gradient here from the H that we have on the background. When we get to the middle, around here-ish, the colours are very similar. So cutting them out is quite useless. Similarly, with the quick selection tool, it works fine on these harsh backgrounds, but when we really get down into the middle bit, there's a problem, because it will just select the whole shape. If we start from the middle, we'll find that there's a problem, because the whole H is quite similar in colour to the background, especially at this, as I say, the middle part where the two gradients meet. So we need another tool, and this is probably one of the most complicated tools in Photoshop, and that is the pen tool. It's got a lot of nuances, and I'm not going to go over them all today. Hopefully in another tutorial I'll be able to go through many of the different options of the pen tool, but this is one of the most versatile tools in Photoshop, and this is the scissor tool that you were looking for. Oddly named pen tool. When I first started Photoshop, I thought that because we had a brush tool and because there is a pencil tool, the pen tool must have been a pen, but actually perhaps the pen tool for beginners is not named very aptly. The pen tool essentially is a tool for creating masks, and masks help you cut something out. So I'm going to zoom into my image here. You might not be able to see the whole H, but that's okay. The pen tool, for the purposes of this tutorial, I'm just going to show you what you need to do. You want to select the pen tool, not freeform, add anchor, delete anchor, or convert. You just want to select the pen tool, and then come over here and make sure this is selected. Not this one, because that will create a shape. This one, this middle one, which will create a mask or a path. As you can see, the graphic for that is a pen visible underneath a path, whereas this one, it just creates a shape. So if I show you this one, actually will just create a shape, which is not what I want to do. I actually want to create a mask or a path. And so what you want to do is you want to click on your H layer, and you want to start the very tip of the pen is where the point will be created. So you want to start masking out your shape. So I'm going to mask out here, 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 and for curves you want to click and drag to find the curve. Then you want to hold Alt and drag both points back to the middle. There are some options. There are some. Sorry, not this point. The other point you want to drag back to the middle, and that's because this anchor here controls this curve, and that anchor would control the next line. But actually, we want the next line to be straight. and then there's going to be another curve here. But this time we don't need to drag the anchor because the anchor is actually straight and that's following the direction that we want to go into. And we don't want to click and drag here because we just want a straight line, and then a straight line up to here, a curve, and curve. If I just drag this anchor point back to the middle and create the curve myself. And if you hold shift it will create a very straight point, but if I don't hold shift I might accidentally click here, but holding shift means that the point will be horizontal to that point. And then I finish off my mask. And here's the important bit. Now you'll see a general outline around the shape. You want to, with this tool selected, right click and you want to select make selection. And the feather radius depends on your shape, but usually I just set it to 0.2 of a pixel. So now you can actually see that if we go into paths up here, we actually have a work path, and that's the path that we just created. And now that we've got a selection, you can hit Command or Control Shift I, which will invert the selection. So if I go to 100% again, you can see that now instead of selecting the H, which is what it selected here, when I invert the selection it selects everything other than the H, and then we hit backspace and we have our H. And now I'm just going to quickly show you how you might do this in practice. So I've got an image here that I got from Flickr, Squelch, one of Squelch's photos. I just found it on a quick Flickr search, so here is the link to get to his page. Again, you want to select the layer, and we are going to work through an actual fully worked example of how we would cut out a shape. So I'm going to zoom in because zooming in is very, very useful. Now you'll notice here that we've actually got quite a few nuances with the hair or the fur of the swan, but actually that doesn't really matter because when you zoom out the fur will look fine, especially when we change the mask. And from the sound of your comment, it didn't seem like you were trying to create a fully professional look. In other tutorials, hopefully I'll be able to show you how to fully appreciate the nuances of the hair. But really, this is quite a simple way of just cutting out. So we're going to go, you don't want to rush it, but there's no need to spend an extortionate amount of time on your pen tool masking, because it's quite, I don't want to say it's a rough process, but if you're not working for print, or if you're not working to create a very, very high quality industry kind of standard mask, then there's no need to pay a huge amount of attention to the level of detail in your masking. You can just Control Z or Command Z whenever you mess up, and you want to just go over and create a path. And again, I'm clicking and dragging to create curves. Curves are better than straight lines because straight lines look unnatural. They were fine when we were masking out the shape because that's just the shape of the H, but for a person, for an animal, straight lines are unnatural. So we want to use as many curves as possible, and as you can see here I'm actually using an extremely rough mask. This is not at all a proper mask. A proper mask would go through and look at all the nuances in the hair, but this is quite a simple solution for, I think, raw, rich and fit for life, what you actually need. So I'm just going to move this over here and finish off my mask. And while I'm doing this, I would like to say, if you could please send in or comment with any questions you have, any ideas for tutorials, because I'm always looking for new ideas. They really help. And as you can see, I've done a very, very rough mask here of this swan. And I'll make selection, and because it's quite a rough mask, I'd say the feather radius I want to be 3.5 pixels. And I'll invert the selection and delete. And there we have a rough and tumble, ready to go swan, or is it a geese? A goose. Is it a geese? God. Is it a geese? No, it's a goose or a swan. It's a goose. swan. Goose, swan.